So, hello, this is Luca from MODULUS Music UK, and I'm here in Music Store to demonstrate this synthesizer, our MODULUS 002 synthesizer. And Music Store is one of our dealers in Europe, so we are proud to present this product for them. And the MODULUS 002 synthesizer is a 12-voice polyphonic hybrid synthesizer. So we got digital oscillators and analog filter and VCA. And we have this very particular type of oscillators called NCO, which is basically a digital oscillator on a wavetable, but they sound a bit more analog, the digital oscillators, because we don't have any fixed sample rate, so we don't have aliasing, and our oscillators sound very bright. The cool thing of being digital, though, is that we can have many different waveforms. We actually have 55 different waveforms. Some of them are very, basically, they are analog kind of waveforms, but some of them are very digital. So this allows us to make many different types of sounds. Some of these waveforms are inspired by PPG synthesizers, so you can actually make very convincing PPG kind of sounds, like these. But when it comes to the filter stage, we have these analog transistor ladder filter, unique kind of filter that you probably already know from Moog synthesizers, but this is our all unique design of transistor ladder filters. And we actually have this very cool feature called slope, which allows us to change the shape of the filter from a 4-pole filter to a bandpass to a 1-pole filter, all in the analog domain. So I can show you, I can play this sound, which is a classic bass sound. Resonance can go quite wild. So this is our filter, and before the filter we have a very useful drive effect. It's not actually the effect, it's a built-in distortion for the filter, so the transistors into the filter basically are overdriving themselves, and this gets very warm sound. We have 2 oscillators plus 2 sub-oscillators, but with this sub-wave function here in the oscillator section, you basically can replicate the waveforms of the main oscillators onto the sub-oscillators. So we actually can have 4 real oscillators. And this is very good to make digital sounds like these, when you don't need actually square waves for the sub-oscillators, but you may want to use the same digital waveform also for the sub-waves. After the filter, of course, we have the envelopes, one for the filter and one for the VCA. Envelopes are classic ADSR envelopes with 2 different shapes that we can choose from. One is linear, that's the shape there you heard on these sounds that I've already played, but we can actually use also exponential mode to get more percussive sound. So if I put some envelope on the filter, here, so it's exponential, this is linear. We have also sequencer and the arpeggiator. The arpeggiator is very cool because you can put hold mode. You can leave the keyboard and then press the same notes again to remove them from the sequence. We have many different modes, like forward, backward, pendulum, and very handy shuffle mode. The sequencer is a very powerful sequencer because we have 32 steps and 12 rows for the sequencer. This means that you can actually control notes but also parameters. So these can be very useful to make very complex sounds. Now you can hear that for each step of the step sequencer you're playing a different note but also changing the value of the cutoff. And you can control up to 12 different rows simultaneously, so you can have, for example, 10 notes playing for each step, and you can even have other 2 parameters available to modulate. As you can see, we have a big LCD screen, and this screen is context sensitive, so if you touch an encoder on the filter section, of course the screen is going to show the page related to the filter, of course. And this is very useful because if you want to have an immediate feedback for what you're doing basically on the synth engine, you can just touch the encoder and you're immediately seeing, in this case, the shape of the envelope. If you want to change the waveform, you immediately see the waveform. And we don't really have many hidden submenus. The interface is pretty much what you see, so you basically get what you see. And this is, for us, is very important because we don't want to have a complicated instrument. For us, it's a key point that you can actually have few parameters, but you can control all of them immediately and just focus on the sound, basically. So you don't have many hidden submenus. As you can see here in the backside of the W2, you have an Ethernet connection. This means that you have your W2 is always connected to the internet. So if you plug your Ethernet cable straight to your router, the W2 is going to get an IP address. And this is very important for 2 reasons mainly. The first one is that for the update, you just need to connect, as I already mentioned, you just need to plug your Ethernet cable to your router. And that's it, basically. If you press 1 here, you're going to see the current version of the software. If you press 1 again, it's going to download and install automatically the new update for the W2. So no need to download the latest software from our website, no need to plug any MIDI connection, and no need to do a sysx dump. So it's very important for us, and we're basically very committed to developing our software, so we are releasing updates every 2-3 weeks at most, releasing new features, and we are always glad to receive feedbacks from customers because we are glad to implement new features. We also gonna release other products in the near future, and all of these products are gonna be based on the same kind of architecture, so we are not stopping developing our software, of course. Another important thing of being online is that you can control your synthesizer with a web interface. So basically, you can connect to your 002 because you're going to have an IP address, so you can connect to 002, and you're going to have a web interface in HTML5, so you can use your iPad or your laptop or your iPhone if you want, and you can just control every parameter you want by that web interface, or you can even save presets, load new presets, and you can even share presets with other customers if you want, buy presets from sound designers. You can back up your synth on your Modulus cloud. As it is an instrument with 12 voices, a synthesizer with 12 voices, we have to find a clever way to manage all these voices from the keyboard. So we have actually 4 different key modes. One is, of course, the polyphonic mode, so 12 notes, 12 voices, 1 voice for each note. Monophonic is 1 note, 1 voice. Unison is how many voices you want for just 1 note. But stack, which is the most interesting one, allows you to select how many voices you can use for each note with this parameter, sides. And in this case, we are using 4 voices for just 1 note. This means that actually you can have up to 3 notes playing simultaneously. This is very useful for dense EDM sounds because you can spread the frequency of these voices and control the spread. So it's like a polyphonic unison. Modulation wise, we have 6 sources available here, 2 LFOs, 1 is global, 1 is polyphonic, so it's actually built on the voice. We have aftertouch modulation, modulation wheel, velocity, and note modulation. We have 8 destinations available on this matrix, and so you can control the oscillator's pitch or the waveform or some parameters for the filter. And a very important thing for the LFO2 is that we have single mode. This means that you can just read the first cycle of the waveform, and actually if you use it with a sawtooth waveform, it's like having some sort of attack and decay envelope. And this is very useful to control like pitch and make these kind of sounds. So basically I'm using hard sync mode between 2 oscillators, and I'm controlling the pitch of the oscillator 2 with this LFO2 in single mode. If I don't use single mode, if I use single mode, I just have 1 trigger. Since you have rate and delay control, you can decide, it's like having attack and decay for this kind of envelope. We also have a very interesting feature called the animator, and the animator is like a step sequencer but just for parameters control, and it's polyphonic, so each note you play is going to start its own animation. So now I'm controlling both cutoff and oscillator 1 waveforms with each step. You can get really complex textures with it to make pad sounds and ambient or FX sounds, because the sound, the modulation is not exact, it's not really, it's not synchronized, it's not global, so it's polyphonic modulation. You can actually even use it as some sort of delay, because if you use a very short modulation like this, I'm using just 2 steps of this sequencer, I can use it as a short square wave LFO. And if you have a long release, It's like having a delay. Talking about the outputs, we have main combo socket output, then an audio input where you can route your external instruments in and let them go through our filter and amplifier section. And I have to mention that the signal path after the oscillators is completely analog. So everything after the NCOs is totally analog, so the mixing stage, the VCF, and the output, and the amplifier and the output are of course analog. For analog purists, we have a D-sub connector. So this D-sub connector provides the 12 voices onto separate channels, and this is a purely analog output. So this is the Modulus W2. It's a great instrument. It sounds great and it looks great, as you can see. And we wanted to make an instrument that sounds as good as the old classic vintage synthesizers, but taking advantage of all the modern technologies like internet connectivity. You can test this instrument here at Music Store in Cologne. So you're welcome here, and thanks for watching. Ah!